So now that you've seen all 4 compositional considerations, you are now going to have to demonstrate how to use those 4 different compositional considerations in the creation of a drawing. Now, you're not going to create a full-on drawing. What you are going to be doing is you're going to be creating 5 sketches of each compositional consideration using the mannequin or womannequin, depending on which one you grab, and the piece of rope. So you can see here I've got quite a few pictures because I unfortunately cannot show you how I am looking at the mannequin and the rope. But this will help you understand the different compositional considerations. So let's get going. Okay, so you're going to be making a total of 20 sketches. I will show you how to do that in another video that's really quick and easy. But right now I want you to understand how to look at the different compositional considerations with these subjects. So let's start here with this object first. So here, with this guy, I'm basically just looking at it here. How do I look at the rule of thirds? That's my first question. Okay, he's obviously not smack that. He's obviously in the middle, and I don't want that. Okay, so I'm instantly going to start to crop. Okay, and by cropping here, what I did in my mind, okay, so I didn't necessarily do this physically, but in my brain, what I did is I actually saw a tic-tac-toe sign right there. And you'll notice that I put the mannequin over on the right side along that line. But more importantly, what's my focal point? That's right. This is my focal point, and notice how it is actually on that intersection. Okay. Once again, I'm not touching all 4 intersections with my subject. I am on one intersection primarily, and then I just so happen to have my secondary focal point along this line. That's unnecessary, but I want you to make sure you understand what it was that I did to convey the rule of thirds. Does this make sense? Now, let's go and look at something else. One thing I didn't explain earlier is when I cropped. Okay, when I cropped here, all right, basically what I'm doing is I'm keeping my crop the same format as my original image. That's my cropping. So when I draw my sketch, I'm actually going to draw it in that sense, or in that rectangle. So I wanted to make sure that I conveyed that. But now let's move on. Let's say, for example, I arrange my mannequin and my rope, and I really can't get a good rule of thirds. Okay, well, that's where you could actually start turning your mannequin and looking at it from different points of view. You don't have to draw the whole thing. You don't have to include all of it. You could turn the mannequin and get a different point of view. Similar down here. So again, turn the mannequin, and reposition them so that it doesn't always have to stay the same. Okay, that's something that's very important to convey. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the L shape in a second here. Some points of views lend themselves to one compositional arrangement more than another. So when I'm looking at this compositional arrangement here, or this view of my mannequin, okay, you'll notice that I could get a rule of thirds. I could also get an L shape. Same thing here. Here, not so easily. Okay, so I'm going to focus, let's say, on this guy right here. So here, to convey an L shape, by the way, I'm starting with rule of thirds and L because they're very related. They're very similar. I could actually, I don't need to crop very much. I could come in and crop right around here, and suddenly I have an L shape. Okay, you'll start to notice that my L shape is right in here. There's my L shape. Okay, not the best L shape. I could actually probably crop a little bit more here. So that would have to be changing the format of my composition, and then it would work. Okay, hope this makes sense. So sometimes you do have to crop that. The most difficult of the compositions, in my opinion, tends to be the golden triangle. Okay, how do you do that? Especially when you have one object, maybe two. How do you create a golden triangle? This is really important to focus on your arrangement, to really look at what it is that you are seeing and how you arrange it. Okay, it doesn't happen by happenstance. You have to consciously make the decision to create some kind of triangle. So when I'm looking, for example, at this image here, I can essentially, if I really wanted to, I could argue by cropping, okay, that there is a triangle in here. And you would be correct. All right, there is a triangle, but notice what I'm going to have to do to crop. Not only am I going to have to come in quite a bit, but I'm also going to have to turn and reposition my composition to make it more horizontal. Do you see that? Okay. That then becomes more of a triangle in there. I think you get the idea with that, right? Now, in some instances, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to actually change your point of view. And this works more successful because now I'm being more conscientious, I'm being more intentional with how I look at my composition and how I arrange my objects. So, for this one, when I'm looking at it, here's my triangle. I come down here, I come up here, and there's my triangle. Notice how it's pretty centered, right? Okay, in terms of like with the triangle in the space. My subject though is not in the middle. Now cropping it once again, and to come in here, you'll notice that if I go with a vertical composition or vertical crop, it doesn't work nearly as well. So again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to switch it to more of a horizontal, and you can see the triangle work out a little bit better that way, and I create a greater sense of motion and movement. That's the triangle. Now, I'm going to not accept any of those, and I'm going to show you on another one here. With this one, trying to get a triangle out of this, once again, you could see there is, wrong layer, you could see that there is a triangle coming in here. Does that make sense? One could argue that the triangle is actually here. I would accept either one. But one of the most important things that's happening right here is look at the amount of negative space. It's too much, right? It's distracting and taken away from the object. So if I come in here and I crop, look how my composition changes considerably, right? I could come in a little bit tighter and my composition changes even more. Now it's becoming a little bit more interesting, and I'm really focused on my negative space. Or excuse me, on my subject by eliminating the negative space. That is the golden triangle. Finally, let's take a look at the strong diagonal. With the strong diagonal, what you are looking at is obviously creating a diagonal across the composition. This one tends to work the best. Now, again, you have to be cognizant about this, and since I really can't manipulate the mannequin, I'm kind of stuck with what I have here. But if I really look at this, I could actually create a strong diagonal in here. Okay? Now that's going to require cropping. So once again, I come in here and I'm going to actually crop, but that's going to require me actually changing my my compositional format to try to get that in there as more of a diagonal. Notice I'm going to stay away from the corner. I could come in here, okay, so that way I'm touching up here and I'm touching down here, or I'm going to bring that up and bring this in here, so that way I'm coming across this way over to here. If I crop more this way and touch the other one, you'll notice the diagonal, but that's starting to be a little too close to center, so I'm going to pull this down. And you can see how that's working in terms of a strong diagonal. Okay? Yes, I could argue it's also a triangle, but I told you there's a relationship there, but I'm really focused here on the strong diagonal. So, what am I going to ask you to do? Well, pretty easy. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating some sketches. So you're going to grab a piece of white sulfite, okay? You can grab a piece of white sulfite, and what you're actually going to do is you're going to create some vignettes. So what that means is I'm in my on my piece of paper, I'm actually going to come in here, and I'm just basically just going to draw some quick, that's a little bit too rectangular, but I'm going to draw some quick little thumbnail vignettes, excuse me. Now, in here, what I'm actually going to do is taking a look at what I've decided in terms of my composition, whether it be rule of thirds, L shape, whatever. Okay, so again, if I come in here and do my crop, for my rule of thirds. Okay, come in here. And there's my rule of thirds. Remember that one? Okay, there's my rule of thirds. Once again, I'm going to accept that. I'm going to come in here, make this red so you can see my rule of thirds. Click OK. All right. So you can see my rule, of course, wrong layer. So you can see my rule of thirds in here. Okay. So now with my rule of thirds there, now what I could do is over here in this image here, I'm actually going to now create my quick sketch. So I'm going to come over to this one. I'm going to draw my rule of thirds lines, right? So you get the idea. Then I'm going to actually start sketching. So I'll be able to come in here, taking a look at what I have here, starting in this area, and I'm going to actually start to draw in really quickly my composition to demonstrate that I've actually learned a little bit about the rule of thirds. Now remember, this is a quick thumbnail sketch, so these should not be taking you more than about a minute or two. Okay, they are thumbnail sketches. We are exploring our compositions and learning about them. Okay, so you'll notice how quick I'm going through this, and I made a lot of mistakes, but you get the idea. And this once again is rule of thirds, and I'm going to do 5 sketches of rule of thirds, then 5 sketches of L shape, then golden triangle, and then strong diagonal. Okay? Got that? You could do all of these on one piece of paper. They should not be larger than 4 by 5. Cool? Alright, thank you.